Joining me now from Detroit for more is basketball analyst Everett Cook. Everett, a great game to watch. A lot of social media reaction, of course, overnight and into this morning as well. We had seen Florida trail for most of the game last night until it mattered most. What changed?
Hi, Kristen. Good morning. Thanks for having me on. What changed for Florida? This is kind of what Florida did all year. They were a team that was able to come back. They came back 3 different times in the tournament. Their comeback last night was one of the biggest comebacks in the history of the tournament. So they're a team that was built to come back from behind. So for a tournament that was largely pretty chalky, the Final Four was at least fun.
Yeah, so all 4 1 seeds made the Final Four for just the second time ever. Is this a coincidence, or do you think we're seeing some effects of NIL at play?
This is the big question, and I think we're going to see a lot of that in the next 6 months. The conversation around college basketball will be centered around these new NIL dynamics, because, like you said, for the second time ever in tournament history, 4 number 1 seeds made it, and they were the 4 clearly best teams in the country. There were not other contenders, right? So that's a dynamic that has not existed for that long in college basketball, where the top teams are so much better than everybody else. So we will, the transfer portal is open right now, and it's open for the next 3 weeks, and I think we're going to see a lot of conversation around this, right?
Yeah.
If we continue to see mid-major players transfer to major programs, like Florida, right? 2 of Florida's best players were transfers from mid-majors. So if we continue to see that dynamic happening, it will change college basketball forever.
Let's shift over to the women. The UConn women won their 12th national championship. That game was on Sunday. A great win for Coach Gino and Paige Becker, of course. What stood out the most to you?
The interesting thing about that UConn team is that Paige Beckers is the big star, right? She's going to be the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft. She's easily the most famous college basketball player out there right now. And she was not even named most important player of the tournament. That was Ozzie Fudd, who was coming back to school next year. So I think the big takeaway from UConn is that they have Fudd coming back next year. They have freshman Sarah Strong, who was already one of the best players in the tournament. So they're going to lose the number 1 overall pick and still potentially be a contender next year.
Wow. So both coaches in Sunday's game, they believe that women's hoops deserve a bigger piece of the pie when it comes to these media rights. It was 2 greats going up against each other. Of course, South Carolina, Dawn Staley, and UConn's coach as well. How do you envision this happening?
It's a great question because, the conversation around the women's tournament rights, they signed a new contract last year, right? So it's an 8-year contract. It's seemingly unlikely that ESPN would change that. But right now, you have the college football playoff has its own broadcast deal. The men's tournament has its own broadcast deal. And the women's tournament is lumped in with every other college tournament, which maybe made sense 5 years ago. Frankly, it does not anymore. The women's tournament draws much, much, much higher than any other collegiate sport it's lumped in with. So that's the argument that coaches like Gino are making, that this is a bit of an outdated way to actually figure out the value of women's college basketball. So I think this will be a very large part of the conversation over the next 6 months, and we'll see what happens.
And while NBA superstars we know get paid tens of millions of dollars a year, that's definitely not the case for WNBA players. And I think that's come more to the spotlight just really in the past year since greats like Caitlin Clark joined that league. Are you seeing more stars staying in college because of the money that they can earn on name, image, and likeness?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, 3 of the largest players who were expected to come out this year, Olivia Miles from Notre Dame, Flau'jae Johnson from LSU, and Ozzie Fudd from UConn, were all 3 expected to enter the draft, and all 3 are coming back to college, in part because they can make more money in NIL deals in college right now, and then that allows them to build this base of popularity so that by the time they reach the WNBA, like Caitlin Clark makes 20 times more money on endorsements than she does on her salary in the WNBA, right? So you can build up your base with these advertisers, you can build your brand, and then you enter the league. So I think Paige Beckers is a great example of that. The other great example is Haley Van Lith out of TCU. She's transferred a couple times, was not going to be a first-round pick last year, came back to school, has had a great year, and now will be a first-round pick with all of this more NIL money with her. So we're definitely seeing that dynamic in the women's game right now.
It's been a lot of fun to watch, especially with all the social media sharing in this particular age. Basketball analyst Everett Cook joining you from Detroit. Everett, thanks again.
Thank you, Kristen.